What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Daily Collegian Football Staff. We got another special video for you today. I'm Max Ralph, joined on Zoom by Seth Engle and our guest today, Chima Okoli, who played offensive line at Penn State from 2007 to 2011. He's got a really interesting story. He went to law school and has been doing a lot on the NIL front. So we're excited to talk about some NIL stuff today. He's founded his own consulting firm called Marathon Mentors, and he's got a lot of good stuff. So Chima, how you doing?
Hey, Max, Seth, happy to be here. Just kind of like we were talking about before we jumped on officially, we're kind of seeing the mutation of NIL. Water always finds its level, right? And at this point, we're seeing that most of the, kind of like we discussed, most of the deals are going to be local. Most of them are not going to be very, very large in outlay. And the litigation, the laws behind it, the policy behind it, that's also moving around a tremendous amount just due to the fact that you look at somewhere, sport is always where you find the intersection of class, race, law, culture. Somehow sport boils it down into this product, right? And you look at what's going on in Jackson State. Well, Deion Sanders, who you might have heard of, he's a coach down there, and he got the #1 recruit coming out. And so you have someone like, we won't say names, but a certain school in Florida, that is a popular school in Florida. They basically got on the horn and said, look, let's make some phone calls down to the Capitol. We need to change the law. A senator by the name of, I don't know if he's a senator, some Florida lawmaker by the name of Chip LaMarca enacted a law because his logic was there's no way that a school like Jackson State could convince a recruit to go to some small historically Black college over big college in Florida who has multiple national titles, right? And we're already seeing this kind of, well, they must have promised them some, illegal NIL to get them to sign there, which was a big rumor, which, I mean, the great folks at the great intelligent folks at Barstool started to say certain things about that. And it, as they knew, it took on a life of its own. And before you know it, once again, you have 17-year-old, 18-year-old kids who are in the crossfire, all due to the fact that they want to give them a choice and they want to give them an option, but they don't want to give them too much of a choice and too much of an option. So, and I'm right there in the middle of it, man, fighting the good fight.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, on the basis of Jackson State, it's a really, interesting subject, the way that, kind of played out, and they, get two top prospects. What are some of the pros and cons? If you're a top prospect, you have the opportunity to go to Jackson State, make some NIL money, maybe more than at another school. What are some of the pros and cons of, just going through with that?
Well, the first pro is that if you are a Black student athlete, and we've seen incidents happen at Clemson and at Iowa and XYZ big school where Black student athletes don't feel like that they've been treated the best. So you're obviously going to go and theoretically raise money that goes to a Black institution. So that's a big benefit, and that's why you see a lot of young Black student athletes choosing to go to HBCUs. I guess if you want to call it con and drawback is, like we said, the larger system at play will then make laws, make federal legislation, or excuse me, statewide legislation to snuff you out and make sure that they keep the best prospects away from you. You're obviously not going to, you're going to avoid some, the bigger programs will sell you on notoriety and camera time. I mean, I went to Penn State, right? 100,000 people. So, I'm not some visionary in that regard, but they're going to sell you on more exposure and more camera time and that type of thing. And to be honest, they're right to a certain degree, but look at how, I bet neither of you two knew about Jackson State University, did you, before about a year ago? Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. And certain people who have enjoyed the money and enjoyed the privilege and enjoyed the status of college athletics, they want to keep enjoying that money and privilege and status, and they're at every school. So those are some of the clear blocks, but at the end of the day, let the chips fall where they may. I don't believe in creating artificial systems to guide student athletes to one school or another. I think that you should be able to have enough gumption about your institution and your program. And if you want to say, hey, look, we can help you with NIL in XYZ way that's above board and it's legal, that's fine. But, I have never seen a state enact a law to prevent a university from getting a recruit once they pull off a coup like that. It kind of lets you know the systematic forces that we're up against.
Yeah. When we talked last summer, can you kind of give me that explanation of what you see NIL as that you gave me? You said it's like, it's the same as like a music student making an album and profiting off it. Like, can you kind of
Yeah,
put it
that's
in
it.
basic terms?
Yeah, Maxwell, that's it. At the end of the day, if I'm a composer and I'm in Juilliard and I develop a score, let's say for Star Wars, it's my intellectual property. I could sell that. You know what I mean? If I'm at MIT and do you guys have any buddies that are engineers?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Right. And they're just different people. You know what I mean? Like they talk to you differently. Sometimes you're like, you might even crack a joke to them and their brain just works differently, right? It's not good or bad. They are just different human beings. But when they get around to one another, they kind of click in. But if you were an engineer and you developed a formula, you could sell that to DuPont or to Goodyear or to any of these, situations that would validate your work and say, look, at the end of the day, you made it, you patented it, this is your invention, you filed, you should be able to get profit off of that. Well, when it comes to college athletics, because of artificial constraints that are designed to keep the hands out of mostly these, talking about football and basketball, most of these young Black kids, you can't employ that in any model anywhere else around the country. So it's literally the same opportunity to profit off of their work that everyone else has, to profit off of their creation like everyone else has. If you are a chef and you're at culinary school, you can patent a dish and monetize it. The arguments against the allowing players to monetize their name, image, likeness, in my opinion, are all straw men, and they're all designed to perpetuate the current system of the money going up to certain parties and the money never coming back down. And to me, I think that that's been wrong for a long time, and I'm glad to see that we're making very, very small incremental steps to change that, albeit after literally dragging certain people to the highest court in the land. But we won't get into that. We'll give them a gold star for their fairness participation trophy.
Yeah.
So obviously a long time coming for NIL. For you personally, when did you start to get into that whole, sector? And why is that, such a big passion of yours?
It wasn't. Day one, minute one. At the end of the day, you can look up, you can see 100,000 people in the stadium, and you can say, well, somebody's making money off this. The thing about it is, the law was just, there were guys getting kicked off left and right for getting $100. You know what I mean? It's like, but you had people who would consider themselves fair and equitable and understanding people who would constantly reaffirm these laws. You know what I mean? And you had the NCAA, who just recently, they doubled down hiring Mark Emmert as like, hey, look, he's our president. They could have kind of ushered him out the door quietly, Max, like, hey, listen, your term ended, thanks so much. You give him a little gold plaque, you shake his hand, you have a little steak dinner for him. Instead, and mind you, you know what? Who's the researcher here, Max or Seth?
I
Seth,
don't
you were
know.
late, so it's going to be you today. Look up Mark Emmert's salary, NCAA. Dude, you had 25 push-ups waiting for you, but this will be what you can do to get in the good graces. Because Max said you were hanging out at the creamery getting extra ice cream. This is why you were late. So,
Shaking my head, Seth. Why you didn't even
right,
bring
right,
me?
right, right.
You
No, no,
owe
no, no. Here's
me.
the thing. You owe us. So look that up, and then I want to hear what you believe about the amount of money Mark Emmert is paid. And then it's a two-part test. In the law, we use two-part tests a lot. The second part of that is I want you to look up the average Power 5 athletic director or senior vice president's salary. Those are your two pieces of homework while me and Max get into this. Can you do that for me?
Yeah, got it.
Good man. Good man. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Yeah, Max, it's now we're looking at certain organizations that have been taxed to regulate this field and create marketplaces for this field. And you quickly realize it's like trying to pin Jello to a wall. It's actually quite difficult. You get what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if you are a Division II student athlete, look, man, I have I was fortunate enough to play at the top level. I have respect for everybody who puts on, because I had friends that went D3. They're like, I'm doing what you're doing, albeit on a lower level, except we're not getting anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
toughing it out. So I had a lot of respect for those people. But it got down to, you know, Shabazz Napier, I believe is the UConn basketball player who got the cream cheese on the bagel. We talked about that. Just, you remember that. You might have been a little bit too young, but UConn basketball, man, they were, Ben Gordon, Emeka Okafor, Shabazz Napier, ballers. Kevin Ollie, ballers. You know what I'm saying? So who is it? Al Horford. You know what I'm saying? Some G's on that team, man. So like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're like, man, we don't even have enough money for all of us to comfortably buy pizza every week. And you're like, who could this possibly benefit?
Yeah.
And then, like we talked about, you follow that, and once Seth comes back with those results, we'll discuss them. But it's not as if the money isn't being produced. Like I said, the money is going up to parties. It's never going down to the players.
Yeah.
So Mark Emmert recently signed a contract extension. He's now making $2.9 million a year. Can you kind of break that down and tell us, maybe a little bit like, what should athletes be making? What should a top tier athlete be making compared to Mark Emmert's salary?
Okay, Seth, you're warming up now. You're hitting a couple from the elbow. You're getting into it. That's good. Mark Emmert, how do I put this? There should be a couple ways to do this. A big scary word that a lot of is probably not going to win me any friends, but I think you can tell I'm past the point of friends at this point. But it's revenue share, and that is what should happen based on all players who are on the team throughout a year. It should be a small base pay that, hey, look, you are on the team, you practice, even if you don't play, you get that. And then it's people act like figuring out student athlete compensation would be so difficult. We give 300 million people wireless internet that allows us to do weird things like this from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We can do complex things that affect large groups of people, right? So anyways, there should be that base. And then let's say if you're able to, you start all 10 games, that's a percentage. You make honorable mention all Big Ten, that's a percentage. You make all first team academic Big Ten, that's a percentage. That was your boy. Those are some of the things I did, but just using that as an example. But my point is, look at somebody like Tim Tebow, 2 national championships, a Heisman Trophy. They still play that reel of him with the blood coming down in the jersey. They are profiting off of this into perpetuity. And that's a word that lawyers use for forever, right? Perpetuity just means as long as you or I are going to care about it. So as long as we have the mental function to care about this, we can use this image. End of the day, it's incredible, right? But the Tebow family isn't compensated off of that. And they're like, well, we gave you a communications degree. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, you're better off with a college degree than without one. So I don't want to make it seem like there's no benefits to being a college athlete. Some of the best things in my life are due to that fact. But this was such a glaring and open, almost like hole that people turned a blind eye to, So it's almost like when you have your mother tells you to take the meat out of the freezer at like 9 a.m. early in the morning, you're going to school. Yeah, well, I got it. And then she gets home at 4 o'clock and it's like 2:30 and you're like, oh my God, I forgot. You know what I mean? So now dinner's supposed to be done at 6:30, right? So now you have to run, get that roast, try and run some water over it, throw it in the oven to try and defrost and cook it at the same time. It just doesn't work. And the NCAA, the university vice presidents, all of the Power Five came together and they were counting all this money, right? So they're like, the last thing that we want to do is break that up. But like that roast that wasn't taken out in time to thaw over time and let policies develop, all of a sudden you got to throw it in the oven. July 1st last year, let's go. That creates disorder. That creates confusion. That creates disparity in state and federal laws. And all of those things are because so many people were getting so much money for so long, and they were literally forced, kicking and screaming, before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court only grants cert to, I don't know, I don't want to say the number, but it's less than 100 cases a year. It's borderline impossible to get a case in front of the Supreme Court, right? Most people can't even get into federal court. It's not easy, but the cases that do go before the Supreme Court are ones that have compelling national interest and national impact. So you're telling me that this amateur athletics that shouldn't compensate student athletes is an issue being discussed in the highest levels of federal court and even into the highest court in the land? No, there's something here. Seth, what do you have as far as those athletic director and Power 5 vice president salaries?
So what we do know so far is the NCAA, I want to talk a little bit about the NCAA, more about Mark Emmert too, before we move on there. The NCAA is making, 1.16 billion, almost every single year.
Say that one more time, Seth, just so that for the viewers at home.
NCAA revenue for 2021 was $1.16 billion.
Almost what Max makes at the Collegian with his fancy headphones. You're almost
Yeah,
on his level.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I bought these myself with that 1.16 billion.
Straight cash, baby. That's
yeah.
the answer. If you know where that reference is from, straight cash. Continue, Seth. I'm sorry.
What I'm confused on, obviously NIL's been discussed for the past, at least the past few years and more than we even know. If the NCAA is making over $1 billion a year, what is the argument against paying athletes? Like that's the thing I don't understand.
Because if they pay the athletes, it will take away the spirit of amateurism. The NCAA, by taking that, it's like when you're little, your dad's like, give me that $20, I'll hold it for you. Yeah, right. We've all been there. And you're like, yo, man, I never saw any of those 20s come back into my hand. And your dad's like, hey, did you have a roof? Okay, you have clothes, right? Sorry, bud. But except your dad, in hopefully most cases, is doing it out of a benevolent way to be like, you're a stupid kid. Because your uncle comes give you $50, you're gonna spend this on Mike and Ike's, right? Or or hot tamales or something stupid. I'll hold it for you. I'll look out for you. The NCAA says, oh, okay, well, again, you got to look at the base, right? When you see March Madness and when you see the college football championships, those are the ones we're going to talk about because those are the money makers. Shout out to the swimmers, gymnasts, fencers, rowers. We're all brothers and sisters in arms here. But the two bigger revenue making sports, we were cool with the Lax Bros. Soccer House is a good place to go to. These are all forgotten bygone days when you would anyways, you would have fun with those gentlemen and those ladies at frat row. You might hit a pie cat, you know what I'm saying, maybe Acacia DU, you know what I'm saying? I'm a man of the people, you know what I'm saying? Alpha Sig, Beta Sig, Sammy, if you know. So we were all together, but they looked at us and like, look, the soccer bros would tell me, we're nationally ranked, man. We're very good, but there's only so many people that are coming to watch us play. You know what I mean? Like our women's volleyball team won 4 straight titles under Russ Rose during the time I was here. So imagine getting a ring freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. That's insane. It's not heard of in any sport. Yet the football team can be doing whatever and we're still a bigger draw. Shout out to the basketball team picking up dubs. I love to see that. Shrewsbury got the boys firing. I love to see that. But it's just one of those things that was ignored for so long because, again, who's going to kill the golden goose, right? It's like, hey, we have this system that we have made up, which some people would argue intentionally disenfranchises kids, right? Or people think that these are savvy accountants that are like, hey, you engage. I'm like, dude, listen, a lot of the people I played football with, myself included, we love the game. You know what I mean? We love Penn State. So it's like, of course we did that. But you're telling me that people like Reggie Bush, who's arguably one of the greatest football players in history, and especially in college, you're telling me that, his mom getting a home is reason for you to disassociate him with USC for 10 years? Do you know how, he's way bigger of a star than I am. But my point is, come there, you can speak, you can engage, you can get paid. That's the thing, right? That I've given everything to this school. And so when the hammer came down, they were like, hey, but sorry, the NCAA, the all-powerful, all-knowing judge, executioner, and jury has decided this. And it's like AJ Green, one of the greatest players in Georgia history. He sold game-worn jerseys, I think it was like $600. $600. Yeah. That lets you know these are not, the common trope is, oh, they're going to go out and buy XYZ. It's like, no, that's money that you need to survive. These are your most precious game-worn jerseys. So I just think people have to get real. People have to get real and put their money where their mouth is, man. My opinion.
So, we're making this roast. We're late for mom. We're making this roast. Grambling State already kind of made waves. They started to thaw it out late. They're gonna institute an income for every one of their players. I know you saw that. How does that kind of how does that set a precedent, and where are we going with that?
It's making people scared, man. You saw Jackson State, historically black college university. I hope that they don't get a law passed to ban them from getting money as well. You know what I mean? But you can look it up. I'm not being extremist. It's on the books. So that's awesome, because at the end of the day, the people who play in your Final Fours and in your national championship games very often don't come from the highest socioeconomic situations. We all know this. ESPN, they can't, oh my God, during any game, they can't wait to tell you about this kid had no father, no mother, up until he was 18. You know, this long, quite frankly, in my opinion, violating sob story, talking about people that may have been passed away in their lives. Really, really, they want to drum up this sense of like humanity. But this is the same kid who, that if he had took $10 from someone for lunch, you're going to take a scholarship away. So it's a lot of double talk.
Yeah. Yeah. How realistic do you think it is that, how soon could we see, you know, the Penn States, the Alabamas starting to do something like what Grambling did?
Well, the only time that big programs move is when they're absolutely forced to. So I don't know. That's a big step from Grambling, and shout out to them, because at the end of the day, I mean, just getting $500, $600 a month would make a drastic change in a lot of young people's situations, you know. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think you got to realize, once people look at universities like this, and Seth, I still need those AD and vice president of athletic salaries, man. I still need those from you.
I got you.
If I'm school X and I'm here, this is, let's just use the S. I don't want to use Big Ten, you know what I mean? So I don't, you know, so this video doesn't get me banned. But let's just say that we're in the SEC and we are Florida. If Bama just got it, we need it. Period. Because they're here, and we see ourselves as kind of here. We're trying to get there.
Yeah.
So that's when big programs will move. It's an arms race. If I have, you know, everybody's played Call of Duty, you know what I mean? You get dropped in. Mm-hmm. You know, you need to up yourself, and quickly up yourself to the best caliber weapon in the arms race, and display it and let everybody know you got it. You know what I mean? You know, it's like somebody gets a care package and you can hear it, like, oh crap, man, you know, the drones are out. Let me kind of chill for a bit. Yeah. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. And the programs want to establish that they are the ones with the largest arsenal, the most up-to-date weaponry. It's all about recruiting. It's all about money.
Yeah. So if we're talking, I mean, it's all about money. We're talking ADs here. You look at one of the, you know, arguably the richest, you know, school in the country, Texas. Their AD is making 2.4 a year.
Now let me ask this. Let me stop you there, Seth. And that's good. We're gonna let's keep walking down this trail. I need more salaries, but how does that, like, what do you think about that, Seth and Max?
I mean, I think it's pretty representative of everything that you've been saying. I mean, this is the person who's I don't know if you want to call it like employs the student athletes, but you know, their salaries here, you take that $10 as an athlete, where does that leave you? It's like apples to oranges with how much money is being made and how much money is being distributed.
Do you know, if you took every single head coach in America and said, look, we're in a crisis, we got problems, we need to limit everyone's salary to $700,000 a year. Almost every single, and we're talking about coaches who don't even win double-digit games every year.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
They would walk out of them. They wouldn't even negotiate with you a lot, like at least 80% of them. $750,000. What do you think this is?
Yeah.
They're almost disgusted. And you're like, that lets you know, and remember, we're not talking about national championship coaches. We're not talking about repeated conference championship coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the thing that stands out here to me is the fact that you talk about, you know, Grambling State, these kids making potentially $600, $700 a month. And then, I mean, I look at Northwestern's AD. I don't know, this stands out to me because it's Northwestern, who has the second highest salary of all athletic directors with $2.3 million. And it's like, what? I mean, no disrespect to Northwestern, but like, dude, is that really deserving of that? Like, does he deserve to make more than, you know, these like top college athletes?
The top college, well, you got to remember, for 100+ years, the top college athletes were making this.
Yeah.
So the person who was below poverty level, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, would still be making more. And again, if I had to ask you these salaries, would you think that these numbers are coming out from these schools or what?
No.
Probably not.
I love Northwestern. Listen, shout to Ken Coulter and those smart kids. They first tried to form the union against the NCAA, and the federal government and the NCAA smashed them. Look up the Northwestern Union, because I was playing at that time. Smart kids over there.
Yeah.
But again, it's not about doing the right thing and all this kumbaya. It's you have to go up against the big system and big interests and deeper pockets than you can imagine. So that's if we're asking why it hasn't been done, it's like, you know, you like making $2 million a year, don't you? And the truth is, paying in a lot of the student athletes paying the student athletes is not it's not just money for nothing, right? Compensating student athletes on their work, that's not going to take away from your $2.5 million a year, but they believe it will.
Yeah.
And they believe it'll create more work and headaches for them at the top level. So it's something that, you know, is going to create work for me. It's something that I'm going to have to either come out and defend or not defend, because, you know, it's all of a political game. And so they're like, well, let me just bury my head in the sand and avoid it, until that knock at the door was so loud that it was shaking the table, and everybody trying to eat dinner in there is like, maybe we should answer. And that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you a little bit now. So what are you doing now? Like I said at the start, you founded Marathon Mentors. You've done some advising with Penn State. You're not doing that anymore, right? And so where are you going now with NIL stuff? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, just give a quick shout out to everybody that I work with at Penn State, particularly Keith Embray, Kirk Deal, Wally Richardson, a lot of really, really good folks. Bob Boland, a lot of really, really smart and talented people that I was working with over the past year. So quick shout out to them. What I did for the past 6 months, I was working with a company called Spry Payments, which is the NIL platform for Penn State athletics, that I was able to broker that deal. I worked with them and I designed NIL education for the past 6 months, which is awesome. As we talked about before, lessons on disclosure, contracts, various types of legal education, really to just give a tangible idea to these things, taxes, you know, understanding federal and state, just little things like that, man. And there's so much work to be done. I'd like to say that I was able to get everything done, but you know, I'm still on my marathon. I'm still moving.
Yeah. So something that James Franklin has said a lot in terms of NIL is that they have to be bold and aggressive. And that means, you know, kind of being on top of the status quo, knowing what's coming next before that thing happens. How do you stay on top of all these changes in the world of NIL?
There's certain people that are really tapped into what's going on, and I talk to them frequently. I also just try and get information like everyone else. It's whatever the law says. If you tie yourself to the law, you can guess what's going to happen. You know, whichever way the law goes is what state and federal policy is going to shift to. Being aggressive in NILs is important. I also think you need to, you know, Coach Franklin, you know, he's right, and being aggressive is important. But aggressive means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think personally, and this is just what I believe generally when it comes to NIL and sports, have the product on the field or on the court or on the ice or in the pool down first. Have your game, make your team elite through the fundamentals of your sport. That will propagate NIL opportunities for them. Very oftentimes we see this huge fervor and concern for NIL this or NIL that, but the team that's winning, that's consistent, that's playing well, those are going to be the men and women, young men and women, who are going to be approached for the most NIL deals. Yeah. So, you know, my general position on that is be aggressive, yes, be smart, and this isn't specifically referring to Coach Franklin, this is just my general thoughts on it. The teams that win and the teams that are the most consistent, those are going to be the teams where the NIL deals are seeking them out, as opposed to them having to go find them. So take care of your on the field, on the court, on the ice product, and NIL will take care of itself. It can't be the other way around, though.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get into a gray area with that now, though. As NIL starts to impact recruiting and everything, I feel like it's going to be harder to create that on-field product if you're not, you know, at the top of NIL, right?
That's also Nick Saban's concern right now too. When he said, you know, when we start using name, image, likeness for a kid to like come play for us, that's where we draw the line, where, it gets into that gray area, like you said. How does a program?
Let me stop you there, Seth. Every coach is going to say that, right? And you've been doing a good job researching, so I'll give you this one for free. Look up the highest paid employee in the state of Alabama.
It's Nick Saban.
It's Nick Saban. You know what I mean? So, oh my gosh, Mr. Saban, who literally smiles 3 times a year, like all of these coaches are going to come out and say these things, but we're looking at actions. You make almost, I don't know, it's upwards of $9-10 million a year. So, like, of course, you're going to decry this system. This system has made you richer than you've ever imagined being in your whole life, because it wasn't coming from LSU and it wasn't coming from the Dolphins. Okay? Yeah. So it's easy for people like, Dabo Sweeney to say, if NIL ever happens, I'll quit. Until today, unless he, it's news to me, football coach at Clemson. So if you've been enriched by the system, it's difficult for me to take too much stock in what you say about NIL, because at the end of the day, he sits from a position of comfort, and he sits from a position of wealth beyond 100% of his players' wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And 100% of the people in the state of Alabama's wildest dreams.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny when you watch the video too of him saying that he's sitting in like his nice living room. He's got his little, like, his chair, his whole desk, his whole, he's got this whole space, and he's talking on this big, like, TV screen, which is kind of ironic when he's talking about why he doesn't believe that college athletes.
Yeah, he ain't hurting. Yeah. He ain't hurting. And the thing about it is, I'm not saying college coaches shouldn't be compensated, and I'm not saying the university presidents shouldn't be compensated. Well, it has to directly correlate to their ability to produce wins and, guide multiple winning programs in multiple sports. And B, stop pretending like these kids have had an opportunity to access any of this wealth that you now find to be beneath you and you have disdain for, right? If you got 2 eyes and 2 ears, you can see what's going on.
Yeah. So let's move into kind of a little bit more like what's happening. Ohio State has implemented like a whole staff on its program just for NIL. I think Texas has done something similar. Michigan's doing something similar. Do you see Penn State getting into that? Is that something that every program's going to do, or is everybody going to have a NIL specific staff?
Remember, if enough of your peer programs adopt it, you must adopt it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether you think it's good for you, bad for you. And this is the thing. I'm a big stick to things that, for example, everybody can't offer a beach like USC. You understand?
Yeah.
But there's enough special things about Penn State that, in my opinion, rival that. USC is a great place to go. Let's not kid ourselves. But there's also special things here. So you have to take advantage of your intrinsic values, because everybody can't be Clemson. Everybody can't be Oregon with the 100 jerseys. You need to make sure you are fully fleshed out on one. And this is my opinion, right? I'm not an expert, just playing one on TV. You need to make sure that your programs are fleshed out and you've taken advantage of everything that's local and around you, because that's the essence of your town. That's the essence of who you are. It's the essence of your fight song. It's the essence of your colors. It can't always be program C, program do. But unfortunately, that's how it goes.
Yeah. So you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and I guess maybe just to kind of wrap us up here. Obviously, football is number one. Football is king. Some schools, men's basketball is going to be king. But how does NIL kind of trickle down? How do you see it trickling down to the smaller sports like the swimming, the soccers, the volleyballs, like you talked about earlier?
I think that student athletes are going to have to discover things. For example, you're going to figure out the person on the swimming team that can cook, or who can play bass guitar, or who can DJ, or who's funny.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a huge clamor in most cases. And I know some exceptional gymnasts, swimmers, soccer, lax bros. I mean, I know all types of athletes, and depending on where you are, depending on your level, absolute baller, respect to them. But at a lot of the Power 5 institutions, those two sports are going to be the main ones that are garnering that. So they're going to have to get creative ways, and they're going to have to definitely work with the local businesses in the area to maintain some type of rapport. Because at the end of the day, it's like people say, oh, well, how are you going to figure out how much this player gets paid? Hey, look, when you walk into a parking lot, are all the cars Mercedes Benzes?
No.
No. Honda, Nissan, Volvo, Toyota, just depends.
Yeah.
So saying that, oh, well, everybody should have access. Everybody can, if you go to a Mercedes lot and you show them $80,000, you can walk away with the car.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing stopping you. It's not like, hey, no, not you, buddy. That's the only thing stopping you, you know? And Name like this is the same. You're not going to go be, if you are, let's say you're on a non-revenue sport, you might not have the notoriety as a Heisman Trophy winner, but it's incumbent upon you to use ingenuity and use your chops to hustle, to get with local businesses to, for example, I'm nice in FIFA. Have a Twitch stream. You didn't expect me to say that, but it's true. Have a Twitch stream. You can get money, right? You got to be smart about it because you're not a Heisman Trophy winner. Some of you are not starters. And some of you, even if you do start, depending on your school, the exposure might not be there. So it's not only the large revenue producing big names that are going to be able to access it, but are they going to have an easier ride? Yes, that's how it goes. Yeah. Add value and be flexible. Those are two things that I try and do everywhere I am. Add value, be flexible. And if you do that, you might find an NIL deal in a place where you probably didn't think of before. Yeah. First of all, I would pay to watch all of the men's gymnastic team cook dinner once a week. That would be cool. That's called content. You know what I'm saying, right? That's called content.
I think what's so interesting. I think what's so interesting is that like just a few years ago, you could have one of those smaller athletes go do a comedy show and they'd get kicked off a team for it. You know,
imagine that. Insane. Like imagine, and there were so many reasons and justifications. Look at the Ed O'Bannon case. There were so many reasons and just and the thing about it is, in America, we will let an injustice prevail for 100 years so long as it's convenient. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and maybe we can look to address some of those things, and maybe we can look to make things more equitable. There's no handouts, but if you've earned it, at the end of the day, if you're a Division I athlete, that's a very small percentage of humans that can even do that, right? So if they're willing to come over to pick you up from across the country and give you a scholarship to come to their school, you obviously present some value. They're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. So people just have to be real, and it's about being able to access a free marketplace, which is what America is based on. So we'll keep working, keep fighting. Yeah.
Keeping it Penn State based a little bit. Sorry to interrupt you, Max.
You're good.
You talk about how USC, you know, they have the beach. Oregon, you know, they have, you know, 100 jerseys. As someone who's in the program, you know, what does Penn State have that can separate themselves from other schools in terms of NIL?
Man, Penn State has the biggest alumni base in the country. Penn State has one of the most dedicated and incredible loyal fan bases in America. Penn State has people that will come from all over the country to watch you play at any expense. You got to remember, when we went to the Rose Bowl in 2009, we had half the whole stadium, right? Most universities cannot do that, right? I was in Europe this summer, and I see a guy with a Penn State shirt on, right? Very few universities have that global impact. It just doesn't happen. If you go to any airport, and I'm sure this has happened to you, Max, and probably you, Seth, you go to any airport, you got your Penn State hat on, somebody will stop you. Hey, man, they want to chat with you. Strangers, randomly. It's happened to me more times than I can count. So if you're asking me what Penn State has, and it's a bit of a je ne sais quoi, which means you can't quite touch it, a little bit of an intangible. But man, when you step in Beaver Stadium, you know it. You know it, you feel it, and everybody who has went to Penn State down the line, feels that same connection, which is why, we always want to make sure that the program, the school in general, is always in the best possible hands, because we have a working, invested interest in it as well. It doesn't just go away. But Penn State's one of the most special places on the planet, man. No doubt about it. Good education, amazing alumni, great sports, great job prospects. Mm-hmm. It's a great school full of great people, man. Yeah. I'm not being paid to say that either. But if you'd like to sponsor at Penn State, you know what to do.
Hey, a student athlete could be sponsored for that too. But all right. Well, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Chima, thanks so much for your time. This has been awesome. Just
appreciate you boys, man. Yeah, man.
Hearing from
you guys
somebody who's
keep
so
working, keep working. What you're doing now, you guys are on the cusp of something important. So remember, You guys are entering into the gig economy, man. Location doesn't matter. Get certs especially if you want multimedia tech. Degrees are going out the window. It's all about the certifications now. Remember, add value, be flexible. Max, Seth, if you need me, just holler at me, man. Great to talk with you guys.
Yeah. Appreciate you as always, Chima. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been Collegian Football Staff interview with former Penn State football player Chima Okoli. Check it out on collegian.psu.edu and follow along with us at PSU Footblog on Twitter. Peace.